a useful body battery watching the hockey game. It's got 10%. Let's see how it holds. Okay. The question that we got the most was in terms of overnight documentation, like what needs to be a progress note, what is like just verbal handover, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I'm here in my education role, not my patient safety role. I recognize this is
It's very confusing.
So yes, overnight note. So I think the best way to think about it is, did something change or did you change management? So I think now that you guys are like further into your R1 year, I find that like if you're going up and assessing the patient, doing an exam, ordering stuff, like please write a note, because if at any point you're like, well, the day team might wonder like what happened overnight, then probably good to just write a note. Any like new issue that comes up overnight that's like significant enough that you're like, I should probably lay eyes on this kiddo, please write a note. If it's just like the nurses are like, oh, just wanted to let you know that, this blood work is bad, you don't need to write a note for that. Or do you think you could put in a PRN Tylenol office? You don't need to write a note. I recognize that there's a bit of gray space between these two things. Use your best judgment. Err on the side of caution, as I always say. You never know, like it might start off as a small issue and then it might escalate over the night. It's okay to sort of like document when you are like, okay, it's gotten big. Just say like, I was initially called here and then I started to assess this and this and this. It's also okay to like provide updates throughout the night as the situation changes. I would say make sure that they are focused notes. They don't need to like outline the entire problem list for the patient, in the whole daytime plan all over again. Just a very brief, like, so this is my assessment. This is why it's called. This is my assessment. Pertinent positive, negatives, investigations that I ordered. Like very, very like bare bones. Just show us your thinking. That's all we want to know. Questions about that? Makes sense. Okay.
No.
Awesome.
I remember. The second question was, I think, I'm trying to remember. The second question was like tips and tricks for multitasking when covering multiple teams. And then I think the third question sort of relates where it's like things to include and exclude in like overnight admissions and physicals. So I think the question is like, when I have all of these competing priorities, what do people care is actually done? Like when they come back the next morning, what are they like, oh, Sasha, like she didn't do the one thing that I cared about overnight, but like she did these 10 irrelevant things.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a judgment call, one that will become easier as you progress through your residency, because a lot of what you do overnight is like triaging, is how I sort of see it. Is like you might get hit with like a whole bunch of different tasks all at once, but your job is to triage how urgent do these need to be, and do they need to be completed by yourself? Can they be delegated to the day team? So like a couple decision points for you yourself to make. Obviously, if it's urgent, the patient is deteriorating, you drop everything and you go. The admissions and emerge, the emerge doc is probably still watching over them, right? You have your night senior as your backup person, but like if you're first call for something on the ward, I would probably just go if that's urgent. So like you need to triage, and that will become easier. And you guys are probably already pros at it after having done almost a year of call now. Something that helped me is to sort of like write things down. I don't know if that helps everyone, but you could try to sort of like prioritize if you want to split your list into like urgent, non-urgent, day team, if you want to triage that way. If there's like certain things that are not urgent but can be batched, sometimes that can be helpful. Like you're like, oh, I have all these things that I need to order for tomorrow. Go into the chart once, order them all at once. And then I guess, sorry, the other half of your question was like overnight, like admission notes, what should be included?
What should be included or excluded?
Yeah. So, we always say pertinent positives and negatives, but that's kind of sometimes hard to pinpoint. So what I would say is, um, always start with a good differential diagnosis and make sure that you're asking questions to either rule in or rule out the items on your differential diagnosis. Um, because that's what I'm going to be thinking about the next morning, right? Like I need to figure out what is wrong with this kid and what do I need to do to make sure that they're safe. So your job overnight is to keep the kids safe. You don't need to worry about their long-term plan. Please pass that along to their day team, but your job is to make sure, like, are we missing anything that's really scary? That's gonna cause something bad to happen overnight. So that's the number one thing you need to focus on overnight. For your learning, it's also always helpful to go through a differential and sort of pretend that you're the staff coming on the next day. What other tests would I potentially want to rule in or out the items on the differential? But it's also not the end of the world, right? As long as you're not missing the really scary, the really dangerous things. Those are the things that we want to make sure that you can order like the appropriate testing and follow up for that.
I would say from my experience in like you're covering two teams, I usually so if you're like covering red or purple, the first time that they call, I usually let the wards know. Like I let 4 East and 5 East know that I'm covering both teams because they don't know. That's not normally what happens. And not all the time, but sometimes that has led to less pages from each team because they just know you're busier. And it's also led to more understanding when you like aren't on the ward right away for something that you have triaged as not important or like not important but non-urgent. You like I think a lot of the stuff that comes overnight is like people don't really know what you're doing. And so they're like, where on earth are you? Because you're not here. And this is the one thing you're supposed to be doing, but you're actually doing a lot of other things. So I have found it's easier when you're bronze in another team because they call you from the same wards. And so like 5 East calls you and they get you for both bronze and purple. Yeah, they realize you're covering two teams, but red and purple don't have that overlap. So I found that to be helpful. I do the same thing as night senior. Like when I only have two juniors and I know there's a really sick kid on the ward, the first thing I put into the flow chat is, well, this is what it's going to be like tonight because I have these other competing priorities. And so admissions are going to be the lowest priority. So I found that to be helpful. I also let people know that I'm cross covering from the first call. And that often helps with the like, what is the plan for tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm not that helpful in trying to identify it. Like I'm not rude, but I just like if I'm covering two teams and I'm busy, I don't like if it's not a busy night and they page you, like I will sometimes like read through the notes and try to figure out what the plan is so I can go tell the family. But if it's like a night where I'm busy and I'm cross covering and I'm like covering two teams, I'm just like, I don't know, I'm cross covering. I don't have that information. They will find out in the morning. And you can be firm on that. Even if like people like in a polite way, I think that's a reasonable thing to be firm on and defer, especially if you're cross covering and you don't know the family. The one exception is like if the family is getting escalated with the nursing staff, then you like should offer support. But if it's just like usually these things can be actually like the parents are relatively reasonable and they're like, yeah, I don't want to talk to a doctor who doesn't know anything about my kid. That's not really going to bring help. And then from an admission perspective, I will die on the hill that there is parts of an admission that like if you have time, excellent to do for your learning. But if you do not have time, it is not necessary at 3 a.m. And honestly, like probably not that helpful. Like at 3 a.m, if a teenager comes in for pneumonia, you like probably want to know if they vape and you probably want to know if they smoke. But like if they like to play soccer or like read books or have good friends at school is like not really important. And so, and honestly, the teenager's probably gonna want to punch you in the face if you start asking them what grade they're in school and what activities they do after school after they've been woken up 6 times at 3 a.m. So I often take extremely limited heads histories overnight. Like if they're presenting for, honestly, even if they're presenting for an overdose, because if they're presenting for an overdose, they're not going anywhere. And so come the light of day, someone can get into take a very detailed heads history, but all I need to know overnight is like, are they safe? So are they going to try to kill themselves upstairs on the wards? Like maybe a little bit about their risk factors for their pneumonia. And like, that's honestly it. When I did my psych, like my mental health block, they don't even do psych assessments. Like when they put them on form 1 now overnight, they send them up to 6 East and they do it in the morning because it's better for them. So it's not even just me like not doing things in the middle of the night. Like it's just like not that helpful. So I often defer that. I also never take a developmental history at 3 in the morning unless it's like a presenting neurological complaint. Like even if I notice when I'm examining the 3 month old that I think their tone is like odd or it's like a chronic like if I pick up on things that I'm like, oh, that's a bit odd, like I would expect your 3 year old to be able to do X, Y, and Z and they can't, but it's like they're not having an acute neurological regression, then I write down like what I noticed and hand it over to the day team to take a full developmental history. Because again, if you take a full developmental history at 3 in the morning and you find out the child is profoundly developmentally delayed and the parents had no idea, it's not really going to go well at 3 in the morning. It's going to go so much better at 11 in the morning. So there are things like that, which I feel like sometimes you're like, oh, I should do it. I don't want to have the day team do it. It's like not that nice. Like I'm just leaving tasks for them. I'm supposed to be doing this full history physical assessment, but it's like mutually beneficial because it saves you time, but also it's not that helpful for the patients to like dive into things that are not necessary in the very early hours of the morning when they're safe. They're not going anywhere. It's not like that's the only timestamp you're going to see them at.
Just to follow off of that, I have gotten the feedback from some seniors and potentially from some staff through the seniors that even after this email that's been sent out that says we don't have to do a full heads overnight, that they want full heads and a full social history and a full family history. I've gotten that feedback on call overnight that like, you know, this isn't a complete like this history or whatever. I'm like, well, so how do you approach that in terms of it's 3 in the morning and some people still want you to do
I
that?
like you have to, so I guess in my opinion, like there is everyone has different expectations and different things that they would like to be done. And unfortunately, you're not going to meet everyone's expectations, especially when you're working overnight. Not to be rude to the staff, but I think it's really easy to forget what it's like to work at 3 in the morning and the competing pressures that you have. And so, yeah, there is certainly times where I've handed a kid over and someone has been like, well, you didn't really complete the head's history. And I'm like, yeah, it was 3 in the morning and the situation was not appropriate. Like mom wasn't there, like whatever it might have been, like it like will be completed in the daytime. And like usually it's like it's never been such a comment that it's like affected my end of rotation evaluation or like affected it's like someone's like, like you didn't do this thing. And as long as you can, yeah. And like sometimes it's like I also find that I had a harder time with this earlier on, but like oftentimes people will perceive the staff asking questions in the morning or the senior resident they're handing over to asking questions in the morning about some of these things as like, oh, I should have asked that. Like, and now they're like calling out the information that I didn't collect. But as a senior who now asks those questions and someone's done a lot of night senior, like they're just often asking.
Yep.
Because they're like, they just want to know. And if
We're
you
just
have
kidding.
collected the information, they're not going to go again and like ask this embarrassed 16-year-olds if they're sexually active, if that's already been done, but not documented. But it's not like they're like, oh, Kayla, you didn't ask if they were sexually active. Like, that's it. Like, rotation failed. It's like, and sometimes I think it feels like it's like a test of like, do you know this piece of information? But usually it's just like, I'm just curious. Like, you met with them, you asked them.
Yeah, and absolutely, there is varying expectations across our division for sure, so it's hard for me to speak for everybody. If it's like you're like really you're like I'm scared, I don't want to don't want to miss anything. There's also like different levels of like detail, right? That you can go into. Like if you want to just do a basic screening for development, you're like, well, do you have concerns about gross motor, fine motor? You know, like just kind of. Whereas like there's also the other aspect of or the other side of the spectrum where you're like, exactly how many months did they?
How many blocks are they stacking right now?
Right, like, different levels of detail that you can go into. And so part of that is like, well, where, like, how important is it to get into that level of detail overnight, right? Maybe for that kid, it's really important. And maybe for this kid who's here with the bronchiolitis, probably not that important. Maybe let's just make sure they haven't regressed and move on, right? So that is again a judgment call. Very hard to say personally, you know, I do support like a focus history. Always good if you have the time and the energy to do it for your own learning. Absolutely. And so like if you really want to like stack blocks with this kid, feel free. I would not say you can't do that. But again, it is 3 a.m. So use your best judgment. And I'm hope like we've certainly talked to our division about this. We hope that like you can be well supported in those like judgment calls that you're making overnight.
Yeah. Sometimes you do just have to have the guts to be like, I didn't have time.
Mhm.
And like most of the time, I actually, in all the times I've handed something like that over, even to the staff who are incredibly detail oriented, I've never gotten more than like and like, I have gotten but like, that's it. Like, no one has
Yeah.
ever been like really upset about it because it's like, well, did you want me to go upstairs and manage your seething kid, or did you want me to do the developmental history? And realistically, they wanted the first one. So, and like people do live in reality.
We understand.
Yeah. The other question line that came up with our last 5 minutes is
I very much appreciate this.
no problem.
Thank you.
Thank
No problem. For asking questions.
was real ideas for managing very busy nights when you are tired or have life stress offering some distraction.
Honestly, I thought this was a really good question.
I thought it was a really good
Yeah.
question too. I
Yeah.
probably should have put it that last, but
No,
it's
no.
last.
You saved the best for last. No, it's a good question because we've all been there, right? Like I remember being a resident and being like, I got so much personal stuff going on, and what is happening here? Okay, real ideas. So I'm trying to give you real concrete things. I tend to like to write things down so that I don't forget that I can still think about them later. Like sometimes you got a lot going on in life, right? And you're like, I really need to think about this, or I really want to worry about this at some point in my life later. And part of it is like the fear that, oh my God, I'm going to forget to worry about it at the end of my call. Write it down. Tell yourself it's like on the shelf. I'm going to worry about it. I'm going to take dedicated time to worry about this after my call. So that has helped me sometimes. Because in that way, you don't feel like you're neglecting it. You don't feel like, it's not important to you. It's just, I'm finding dedicated time outside of my call towards it. Make sure that you take care of yourself as best as you can within the constraints of being on call for 24 hours. This is the hardest thing ever. They're like, sleep, and you're like, how? I'm getting paged every 5 minutes. They're like, eat, and we're like, but it's 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm gonna puke. I don't have like a magical solution for that. Try to sleep if you can, if that means it's for like 5 minutes. At some point, you're so tired, you just start sleeping. Yeah, we've been there. Make sure you sleep post-call. Don't try to like tough it out if you had a really rough night. Do take that post-call day to rest and recuperate. Don't try to do a lot on your post-call day if you can help it. I mean, if you had like, if you're a good sleeper, you slept all night on call, I won't tell you what to do with your post call.
No, still you should do
You
nothing
should,
with your
yeah.
sponsors.
If you really want.
Being a good sleeper on call is a lie.
Yeah, I don't know how people do it. I can't sleep.
Even
on
if you
call.
sleep, it's not the same quality as
No,
if you had
it's
like
not.
real
The
sleep.
pillows are like
Your,
terrible.
neck is
The
like upside
bed.
down and backwards.
Yeah. So do try to like prioritize yourself on the post-call day. Take time to take breathers when you're on call. Like I know it's really, really busy, but I don't think anyone's going to fault you for like just taking 30 seconds, take some deep breaths before moving on to the next patient, because I know like a lot of stuff happens. But we're not gonna be like, oh my God, Ellen took 30 seconds to breathe in the stairwell. Like that's okay. Take some time between patients. Remember that you have, lots of people to lean on. I like you guys seem like a close-knit group, and coming through this program, I've always felt like the residents are looking out for each other. So, do lean on your colleagues when you need to, because like one day they may need to lean on you, and that those things go both ways. So certainly, don't hesitate. I think we're all here to help, and like you know, whatever staff you have on call with you will try to support as best as they can too. And then, you know, in those busy nights, just remember, you're just there to keep the patients safe and alive till the morning. Yeah.
I would add, I think the first thing is to triage whether or not you can come to work, because it's
Mm.
fine if you can't.
That's also true.
But it's a I guess like a decision point of like, we have a really hard job, and it is a job that requires a lot of your brain power and focus and energy. And for some people, if there's things going on in your life, then like having a job that occupies your brain can be a bit of like
Yeah.
a short-term sort of like coping, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of responsibility. And so I'm sure at some point in everyone's residency, there will be life reasons that you like can't come to work. And so I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's like a question you have to be honest with yourself and answer with yourself, because it's actually not helpful if you come to work but you can't work. Like, it's not helpful for you, it's not helpful for the patients, it's not helpful for the people who are responsible for you. It's just like all around unhelpful. So that's like the first question to be honest with yourself about. And then the second question that I asked myself is like, okay, so fine, I think I can go to work. Then what do I need today that is different than what I would need on an average day? And I like to ask myself, like, you can't always predict, like you can't predict what's going to happen on the shift, but you sort of know what's going on in your life ideally before you come to the shift. So what am I going to do that's going to make this easier? Because I know the shift is going to be hard to like be at and focus. And if you can come up with a couple of things that are helpful ahead of time. So I'm not like that good at eating meals on call. It usually makes me feel sick. I don't really like it. But if I'm like, this is not a good day, I didn't eat lunch, I wasn't having a good day, it's like, okay, I know I have to eat dinner. So I'm gonna go downstairs, and after handover for the first admission, to be like, I need to eat. I haven't eaten anything all day. And like no senior is gonna be like, no, you must go.
Yeah.
Like, of all the things that happen on call, there's lots of things that need to get done. There's very few things that are emergent that need to get done like right that second, that you can't take 20 or 30 minutes or whatever. So like maybe it's you need to eat, maybe you need a 30-minute nap, maybe you need to go call someone. But if you've identified that these things are going to be things that you need to do for yourself that night ahead of time, it's a bit easier to like triage it into your call shift or your like plan for that evening, makes them easier to happen. I also write more things down. Like when I know that I'm having, like for whatever reason, not going to be the easiest shift I've done. I like don't write a lot of things down normally. I like get handover and I like travel through things down, and then in the morning I like recall whatever I was paged for. But I will like print out a bigger list that has more space, and I will write more things down that people page me about, because I know that I'm probably not going to remember it in the morning. And then in the morning, it's like, well, it's already written down. So it's like relatively easy to hand over. And maybe I hand over more things than are truly necessary because I'm usually just reading off the sheet at that point. But like, whatever, they can screen that out come morning. You've handed over the like important things. Um, and then I think it is also helpful. You don't have to give anyone any background into your actual life. But if like while you're still juniors, you have support on call when you're a senior too, but you have more support than you do as a senior just because the senior is there. And so if you're comfortable telling the senior, like, again, you don't have to give them the details. They don't need your like, you can tell them the details if you want to, but like a lot of the time people don't. So you can tell them just like, this is a hard day.
Yeah.
And then that lets them also help triage, because at 4 a.m, if I have an admission that's 2 admissions and one of them is like a complicated brain and one of them is like a straightforward bronchiolitis, then the person who told me they were having a hard day is going to do the bronchiolitis, and the one that involves the brain is going to go to the person that has like a little bit more brain power at 4 a.m. And it will flip depending on who that is on a given day. But there are things like that that can be done. Or to be honest, if there's like for me overnight and for a lot of seniors, like I do most of the admissions that come in after midnight myself, because it's faster and sometimes there's not a lot of learning and admitting your 7th pneumonia. You guys have been there for 24 hours, so you might as well sleep. but I will wake people up for admissions that I think are like learning. So if there's like a true new Kawasaki or a new leukemia or a new whatever that don't come in all that often, I'll wake you up normally. If you've told me that you're not having a good day and you want to sleep, then like
Mhm.
I feel like I'm not taking away that learning from you. Like I'll just also do that admission after one morning. So I think having those open lines of communication is helpful because a lot of that stuff can be triaged differently.
Totally agree.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, we're over time, so you should all go home. And speaking of fatigue and wellness, and
Yep.
Brittany probably wants to take me home. But if you guys have any other questions, you know how to find me. I'm relatively